Well, I'm glad you have joined me for this. I'm going to reveal all my secrets. I've had many of you ask, how do you do the music from the Psalms? And I've tried to explain it in writing and emails and everything else. I'm wanting to write a book, but that hasn't happened. But one of the things I thought would probably be the most appropriate would be for me to put a video together and show you what I'm doing. And I invite you, if there's any questions you have after watching this video, you're always welcome to write me, steve@calmingharp.com. Calming Harp, CalmingHarp.com. And as you know, I'm going to be posting this up on my YouTube as well. So it'll be available on my YouTube. It'll also be available on www.calmingharp.com. So all of those resources are available to you. So to start with, I wanted to just talk about the Psalms. The Psalms, after all, as I started into this back in 2006, I thought, the Psalms are a songbook. Why is it that we don't have the music, or does somebody know where the music is? And after spending time in Israel, some of you have heard my talk before, I realized that there was no, in fact, archaeologists told me they still hadn't found any sheet music. And so one of the things that I did find was a harp maker, Mika Harari in Jerusalem, shared with me that he had built a harp with 22 strings, and at the base of each string he had put one of the Hebrew letters, with the idea that a Hebrew letter has an associated note. Now the Hebrew text, the Hebrew language, characters, letters, it's a pictographic. Every letter has a picture that it started with. When we go to the Paleo-Hebrew, that is the Hebrew that was written originally, and each one was a picture. Just for instance, the letter Ayin is a picture of the eye. The letter Yod is the picture of the hand, and so forth. And they're all related to everyday life. It's actually more agriculturally oriented than we are technically oriented today. But each letter has a picture. And then we also have this system of gematria where each letter has a number. And so it wasn't too far of a stretch to think that maybe each letter has a note associated with it. So the next thing was to discover where's the key to the notes that go with each letter. Well, the archaeologists and theologists and rabbis didn't have much help for me there. And so the next thing I did was to begin to search through the internet when I came back home from Israel in 2006, and I ran across a resource of Leonard Horowitz and Joseph Pullio, who had written a book, Biblical Codes for the Biological Apocalypse. And I'll show you a picture of that book later on. It actually is available for download online now. It's hard to find the book itself, but the online version is available, and I can share that link with you as well. So in that book is a chapter by Joseph Pullio, who said that he had received a download from the Holy Spirit. And I believe he said download from Jesus, and I would take that to mean the Holy Spirit active in our life, because Yeshua said, I'm going now, and it's important that I go, because when I go, I give you the Holy Spirit, and He will guide you into all truth. And so this download centered around going to Numbers chapter 7. And in Numbers chapter 7, we start out with a description of Moses setting up the tabernacle. And then, starting with verse 12, every 6 verses, one of the tribes is bringing a gift. It's a dedication gift. They're getting ready to begin to use the tabernacle, and so each tribe wants to bring a gift of dedication. The interesting thing is that in each of those gifts, as it's delineated, lined out, they're exactly the same thing. And I find that rather interesting. Why didn't it say all these tribes on day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down through 12 brought these same gifts, and this is what they were: the bowls, the gold, the animals, all of those things. But they didn't do that. They repeated it 12 times. And in Hebrew, and whenever you repeat twice, it's important. It's like a flashing sign that says, wait a minute, you need to pay attention. There's something else you need to find here. And so here's a repeat times 12. And so as Joseph started looking into that and the revelation of the Holy Spirit, he began to understand that these patterns were revealing something, and that something was 3-digit numbers that were repeated 4 times. Those numbers of 3 digits didn't just come out once, they came out 4 times. So I'm going to post up some pictures of charts that show it's kind of colorized so it helps you follow it easily, to see that pattern of those numbers that come out of that text of Numbers chapter 7. Now the one thing that we do in coming to those numbers is we use what's called the Pythagorean math, or Pythagorean scheme is what it's called sometimes. It's a way of looking at numbers where you reduce every large number down by continuing to add the numerals together until you come up with one number. So just for instance, 19 is 1 plus 9. That gives you 10, but 10 is 2 digits, so you have to go to the 1 plus 0. That finally brings you down to the number 1. And then you have your Pythagorean number. And that's what we do with each one of these verses that you'll see here. And so I'll show you that chart, and that will make it much more clear, and I'll describe the chart as we go through it. So this is the chart I was telling you about that shows the patterns that are in Numbers chapter 7. We start with verse 12 there. And when it says, and he that offered the offering the first day was Nahshon, the son of Ahimelech, of the tribe of Judah. And we go, it's verse 12 is 1 plus 2 equals 3, so we'll write the 3 there. In the next verse, and his offering was, and it gives the offering, and. Okay, so each verse is 1 plus 3 is 4, 1 plus 4 is 5, 1 plus 5 is 6, 1 plus 6 is 7, and 1 plus 7 is 8. So that's the 6 verses. Then, verse 18, on the second day. So now we're starting another day, another tribe. Nathaniel, son of Zuar, prince of Issachar, offered. And we notice that this is exactly the same as this, same as this, all the way through. Word for word. And so with 18, we go 1 plus 8 is 9. 1 plus 9 is 10. 10 is 1 plus 0 is 1. 2 plus 1 is 3. 2 plus 2 is 4. 2 plus 3 is 5. And then we get to the third day. 2 plus 4 is 6. 2 plus 5 is 7. 2 plus 6 is 8. 2 plus 7 is 9. 2 plus 8 is 10, which is 1 plus 0 is 1. And 2 plus 9 is 11, which 1 plus 1 is 2. And so we're going to see that same pattern that's going to go on every single one. In fact, here is verse 30, goes up to 47, same thing. Verse 48 down to 65, you get the same pattern. And finally, verse 66, the 10th day, 11th day, 12th day, same numbers, same numbers. So these numbers, as you saw me turn the page 4 times, that means these numbers come up 4 times, like I said. So there's a repeat of 12 times, and there's also a repeat of the numbers 4 times. And so that's where we get these numbers. So the first number is 3, 9, 6, 4, 1, 7, 5, 2, 8, 6, 3, 9, 7, 4, 1, and 8, 5, 2. So that's the same numbers we get on all the other 3 pages as well. So total of 4 times those numbers show up. So that's how we get the patterns out of Numbers chapter 7 that gives us the notes. And so I hope I didn't butch this too bad here, but anyway. I don't know why that dropped on me like that, but anyway. So those are the numbers. And so the next thing, and there's an airplane flying overhead, I hope that's not too noisy, but the next thing is, okay, what do these numbers represent? So what are those numbers that we find, those 3-digit numbers? We find 396, 417, 528, 639, 741, and 852. Well, one of the things we have to think about is if we're trying to find out musical notes for letters, a note is recorded in hertz. That means the number of times it vibrates per second. The lower the number, the lower the note. The higher the number, the higher the note. And 528, interestingly enough, is a number that I believe is very significant. It ends up being a C note. And the note below 528 is middle C, and then 528 is the next note above. We don't have to get into those details right now, but just to kind of give you a relationship between what is that number 528, how does that correspond to a musical note? So 528, the note is C. So now, once we have those notes, and I've got a chart that lists those out, so we don't need to spend time right now. I'll go over that chart when I bring it up. When we take those notes over to Psalm 119, an interesting thing happens. First of all, in Numbers chapter 7, we ended up with a number for each of the notes. And what I did was I placed the notes chronologically as they ascended in the scale. So I made A equal 1, B equal 2, C equal 3, E is not in there. There's not a frequency that corresponds to the E note. So we had to go to the next letter, F, with 5, number 5, G 6, and then we have 3 notes left because with a 9 numbers. So what I did was I started back over to number 7 is also A, number 8 is also B, and number 9 is also C. And believe it or not, that works out. At least it works with the system that I've been put together. And I'm just showing you my system. There may be somebody out there with a different system, and that's fine. But this is the way I do it. and I'm just sharing that with you. And so what we do is we go over to Psalm 119. And the interesting thing with Psalm 119 is that even in your King James Version, the beginning of the first 8 verses, it has the letter Aleph, which is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And then when you get to the 9th verse, it has the letter Bet and Gimel, and all the way on through the whole alphabet. And what that means is that the first letter of the first word in each of those 8 verses starts with the Aleph. And when you get to the Bet, the first letter of the first word of each of those verses starts with the letter Bet, and all the way through the alphabet. And so when we take the first verse of that letter, that gives us the number 1, and we correspond that over to A. So now when we come to Psalm 119, I just copied off a page to try to make it a little bigger. If you go to your King James Bible, it'll probably make it easier. This is verse 24. It's the last one of the letter Gimel, which is the 3rd letter in the Hebrew alphabet. So it starts out with Gam is the word. The next is the beginning of the next 8 verses, and you can see they're broken apart here in the English, and the King James actually puts the letter there. The next letter we're going to look at is Dalet. That's the 4th letter of the Hebrew. So Dalet is the first letter of the first word. Dalet, first letter of the first word. Dalet, 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 Dalet. And then we begin the next 8 verses, and that's the letter Hey. Hey, 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 Hey. And then we go to the letter Vav. That's like the tenth state, the V sound. Vav, 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 and on through. So I tried to show it to you in the Hebrew so that you can see the word, the actual word, because if you try to translate out of the concordance, it doesn't quite work out that way. But when you're in the Hebrew text, it definitely comes across like that. So that's the way they're lined up. And so I'm going to put this sheet here to just line it out all the way through Psalm 119. So the first 1 through 8 is the letter Aleph. And so that gives the letter 1 because that's the first verse. And 1 equals the note A. The Bet starts with verse 9. And so that's going to give you 9, which is the C, as well as 3. 3 and 9 are both C. And then the next letter is the Gimel, which is 24, 17, which is 1 plus 7, which gives you 8. 8, 2, and 8 are the letter B. And then the next is the Dalet, which starts with 25. 2 plus 5 is 7. 7 is the note A. Hey, which we were looking at, starts with 33. That's 3 plus 3 gives you 6. So 6 is the note G. And Vav, we were just starting on Vav, starts with number 41. 4 plus 1 is 5. 5 is the note F. And so you can just follow all the way through the letters to find out which notes they are. So you can see how each of the Pythagorean numbers 1, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 9, 8, 7. And so those notes are going to repeat as well based on those numbers. So that's how this chart works out. Remember, this one is downloadable from the collaboration page on www.calmingharp.com. And so that's available for you to use as a tool for your transcription. The note A. When we get to 9, we correspond that over to the note C, because C is 3 or 9. When we get to 17, well, 17 is 1 plus 7, which gives you 8, and 8 goes over to the letter B. And when you go to 25, that's 2 plus 5, gives you 7. That goes back to the letter A again, okay? And then all the way on through the alphabet. And once again, I've got the chart, so you can refer to the chart. The chart's downloadable off of my website on the Collaborate page, www.calmingharp.com/collaborate, and then right in the middle of that page is that chart that you can download. So, once we have that coordination with the note to a Hebrew letter, then we can begin to bring music out of the psalm. So the first thing I did Psalm 23. And an interesting thing, just on the side, if you take 396 and add it up together, 3 plus 9 is 12, plus 6 is 18, 1 plus 8 is 9. All of those three-digit numbers, if you add them together like that into Pythagorean, will give you a 3, a 6, or a 9. And I found it interesting. There's a statement from, I'm not sure how you feel about Tesla, but Tesla made a statement one time. He said, if you would understand first of all, the universe, in order to understand it, you have to understand frequencies. And then he went on to say later on, the most important numbers in the universe is the number 3, the number 6, or the number 9. Some people pay a lot of attention to numbers and how they relate to our daily life. I'm not sure if you want to go that far, but I have friends that take it very seriously, that those numbers are part of where the blessings of life occur. I'm not sure of all that, but I think it's worth considering at least. And so now we have these notes, and I'm going to take a shot here and share it with you. I've been working on Psalm 22 here, and so the first thing I do, well, here's what I use. This is the book I use. It's an English Hebrew rendition of the book of Psalms. It's called Sefer Tehillim, which in Hebrew means the book of the Psalms. And so what it has is, it has the Hebrew written out and then the English below it. And what I do, first of all, when I go to transcribe a psalm, is I write the psalm out. Now, Hebrew writes from right to left. And so what I'm using on my, in fact, maybe I can hold this up and show you. You can see I've written out each of the words, and the words I write right to left, but then I put word to word to word, left to right, because that's how music goes. And so when we're figuring out these notes, then we work from left to right, but when we write the Hebrew word, we write it from right to left. So I write the word and then put a slash on the line. I've been using, I don't know if you noticed, but I've been using staff paper, music paper. And to me it makes it easier. I have used other paper as well, and it can work as well, but that's what we do. Now, the thing I do, here's one of the other ones I've done, and you probably won't see this. I'm going to take shots of this up closer. But you can see I've written in the number for each of the letters under the letters, and then above the letters, I've written in the total score of the number and what note that represents. And so let me say a little bit more about that. The first thing I did was Psalm 23, and I tried playing note to note to note to note to note like I would a song. And it was interesting, but it didn't make what I call musical sense. It was kind of, there were no patterns in there. It was just kind of over the place. And I know of one person that took those notes and orchestrated them and put it online, and it's actually still available online. And I don't want to say their work wasn't good, because it was kind of pioneering for what would come later. But most people that I've talked with who have listened to it said it was okay, it was interesting, but I couldn't go to sleep with it. And so in playing that Psalm 23 that way, I said, okay, Father, and I really believe the Holy Spirit has given me so much of this understanding that I have. So what am I missing? And I got this concept of taking all of the letters in one word, and before I understood the Pythagorean numbers, I just looked at the notes that were in that word, and I said, well, what chord would that make? Later on, and what the method I'm going to show you, which I think is more accurate, interestingly enough, it was very close to the previous way, but I think it's easier and more accurate to do the numbers. So I take the number of each of the letters, and I'll give you an example. The word shear is to sing, okay? It has the shin in it, which kind of looks like a W. That's number 8. It has the yod in it, which is, like, remember the hand, that's number 1. And then it has the resh in it, which represents the back of the head, or the head. And like Rosh Chodesh is the beginning of the month, so it's the head. So 8 plus 9 plus 1 gives you 18. And then 18 is 1 plus 8, that gives you 9. So that gives you the C note that's on the chart there. And so when you have that C note, that represents the C chord. That means it's the bass note of the chord that you're going to play. That's the C, the E, and the G. That gives you that C chord. And so when you go through and play the chords of each of the words, you go chord to chord to chord. When I started playing that way, that made so much, it was beautiful. There was musical sense to it. There were patterns in there. And then the thing I would do was, as I played through, I would, and I still do, I take those patterns and I put those into the composition. And the patterns are like a chorus, a verse, possibly a bridge. And so those are that's the way that that I do that. I actually have those chord progressions that come out of adding up those note numbers into one number for the bass note. That's the chord, and then you go chord to chord to chord and play through the music like that. Now, the next thing I want to show you, and once again I'm gonna cut in and show you these things up close, so don't get worried about that. And in fact, as you view this, I'll have done that. So anyway, and so I think a lot of it, your understanding is going to come clear as I begin to show you up close what that looks like, what I'm talking about. So now we get down to the nitty-gritty. I started working on Psalm 22, and I've got to get this focused into the right area here. Okay. So this is Psalm 22. And the very first word is here. And remember, we write Hebrew this way, but we write music this way. So this is kind of how I've worked out how to do it. So the first letter in this word, this is La Menetscha, and that's to the director. So Lamed is on here. Lamed is right here. It's number 8. So we'll write an 8 under that. And then we have the Mem, that's the next letter. And so the Mem is number 7. The next letter is the Nun, which is here number 6. The next letter is the Tzadi, that's number 2. And the final is the Chet, which is here, it's number 3. So when we want to get to, so we're going to do that for each word all the way through. And 8 plus 7 is 15, plus 6 is 21, plus 2 is 23, plus 3 is 26, 2 plus 6 is 8. So that is going to give us 8 is the letter B, so the B chord. Okay, and so I go through and do each one the same way. This is the Ayin and the Lamed, so the Ayin is down here, that's number 4, and the Lamed we already did was 8, so that's 4, 8. 4 plus 8 is 12. 12 is 1 plus 2, which gives you 3. And on here, the 3 equals C. So that's going to give you the C chord. Okay? Aleph is 1. Yod is 1. Lamed, remember, is 8. And Tav, down at the bottom, is number 7. So 7 plus 8 is 15, 16, 17. 1 plus 7 is 8. So we're back. Remember, 8 was the B, so we're back to the B. Okay? And so we'll just keep going through the whole thing that way. Now this is a page of one that I did, so you can see that they're all worked out. They have the chords written on the top of the words. And then what I do is I go through and write all of the chords out in progression, the way, and this is, I put a slash there for the first line, the second line, third line, fourth line, like that. Just part of my organization. You can organize it how you want. But then I start going, you notice that there's some that are circled. And when it's circled like that, that means that's a chord progression that has a pattern to it. When I was playing through it, that chord pattern made a lot of, it had it sounded like it belonged in a song. Let's just put it that way. It made musical sense. And so I circle it because that's where I want to come down and start developing the composition. So that's kind of the mechanism, the nitty-gritty of how this all works. And I hope that's going to be helpful for you. Okay. I believe that there are many ways to interpret the psalm musically. The Psalms are all about music. Once again, as I started out, it's a songbook. I started asking about the Psalms. I'm going to just share this in closing. I was playing the harp for my patients on hemodialysis in the hospital. And I had a little small 26-string harp, and I started taking it in, and I had built that harp just to see if I could learn to harp, and within a year I was willing to let people hear me play. And so one of the things I noticed was that the blood pressures would come down more than normal, heart rates would slow more than normal, the patients that never slept would sleep. Oxygen saturations would come up more than normally. Some of those things happen with dialysis because you're taking fluid off, but this was more pronounced and more above the normal expected, even within the same patient. And so I began to think, I was reading 1 Samuel chapter 16 one time, and it's told about King Saul having a troubling spirit, and his helpers calling David, say, come bring your harp and play for him. And it records that as David played, the troubling spirit left. And I began to wonder, is what I'm seeing take place with my patients on hemodialysis, is that maybe a manifestation similar to what David was seeing with King Saul? And so I started asking, once again that idea came up, the Psalms are a songbook. Does anybody know what the Psalms music sounds like? And so when we went over to Israel in 2006 for Feast of Tabernacle, I decided I would ask rabbis, archaeologists, teachers, musicians, whoever, artists, does anybody know what David's music sounded like? And the quick answer was no. Nobody had found sheet music in an archaeological dig. But that's when I ran into Mika Harari, and I told you about him as the harp maker. And the first thing I did was when I got home, because he said he put a letter by each string, and I said, well, how did you know which letter goes with which string? And he said, I just started with the bottom with the A note and went all the way up to the top with I just followed through. But that gave me the idea of, well, if there's a note to letter coordination, maybe I could bring the middle of the note scale across to the middle of the alphabet and then go up and down from there. And that's how I started. And like I said, I think that was working pretty well, but using the number system is actually even more accurate. But that's how we got started with all this, and then finding Leonard Horowitz and Joseph Puglio. And I have to say that what I'm doing is not strictly from my brain. It's the result of talking with different people, reading different resources, and kind of compiling all that together. I remember one day I got a call from Leonard Horowitz, and he said, I don't know if you know who I am, but I said, well, I just wrote an article about you. So he said, Joey, and he called Dr. Puglio, he's called him Joey. He said, Joey and I, we always knew that this has to do with music, but we aren't musicians and we didn't know what to do with it. He said, you know what to do with it. And because I had just posted up on my son had encouraged me to put together a YouTube channel, and I had just posted up my first video that I had done, and sharing some of the music from the psalm that I had put together with the harp. And Leonard was just so excited that he said, you actually know what to do with it. Well, once again, I have to give God the credit, because I'm not the smartest person in the world, and I'm certainly not a classically trained musician. And I'll end this with an appeal to any of you watching. because one of the troubles I have even today is I play by ear, not really, but I don't have music in front of me. I play what I'm hearing in my mind, in my heart, and then that comes out of my fingers onto the strings. And so the music I produced, I don't have music for it. The best I've been able to do is get a program that I can do one note at a time and get the melody line, and then I can write the chords below. But most people that ask me for sheet music want the whole thing, like you would have in a songbook, and I don't have the ability to do that. So if any of you know somebody that would be willing, I'm willing to pay. That's fine. It would just be really great if I could begin to get much of this music onto a format of sheet music that people can whatever instrument they're on can read it and play that music and share it with those around them. I've gone into the hospital a lot, even since I retired from the medical profession. I've gone into nursing homes, and everywhere I go, people are so blessed with the music. And I believe it's because it's God's music. It's not mine. It's, God told David how to do this so that the music would be embedded in it, I believe. It seems kind of crazy, but I really think that's how it happened. David was a prophet after all, and he heard from the Father. So anyway, so if any of you know somebody that could do that, could transcribe what they hear me play into writing it down into sheet music, I would just be so blessed if I could find somebody that could do that. I had somebody in England once that did one for me, Psalm 51, and I've got that available on my marketplace on my website. But for several different reasons, things didn't work out there, and so I was sorry that dried up, but it did. And so anyway, I'm going to close out now. I believe I presented to you a full enough understanding of what I do with the music, so that when you want to begin to do it, it will be available to you. You can write it out, transcribe it out, and then begin to play around. You taking your instrument, whether it's a guitar or whether it's one note at a time flute or saxophone. Gabriel Bellows' saxophone was beautiful with the harp, or a combination of instruments, an ensemble. I mean, there's so many ways that this can go, and I just believe that this is the very beginning of the possibilities of what our Heavenly Father, how He can be blessed through this music, how He can take it out to the world around us and have so many other people blessed by it as well. The comments I get on YouTube amaze me every day, that people tell me they're insomniac and they start listening to music and now they can sleep through the night. Cancer patients tell me that they have much better pain control with this music. Birthing centers use this music to help mothers relax and have a much more joyful birthing process. I can go on and on. Alzheimer's units, patients are so much calmer with this music going on. I can give you experiences after experience about that as well. But I'm not going to belabor the point. I think you understand. One reason why you're probably coming to this video is because you have already seen what I've been doing and you have an interest in propagating it. And I'm so glad that that's taking place. So to close this out, I would just ask the Father bless you and keep you. The Father lift up His face upon you and give you His shalom.